eat that salad or?
I don't know. So here we are
Where are we going?
at an Italian restaurant eating fried calamari to discuss a book about a squid with my fifth or sixth choice for a person to discuss the book with. China Mieville's Kraken is a book about many things, but one of its common themes is philosophy and thought and the way that we use language and how things come to be. And I thought that would be really cool to talk to a philosopher, maybe a philosophy professor from like an accredited university, but instead I'm with a cynical English major because none of those universities would return my emails. I guess it's creepy whenever a guy sends an email and says, hey, you want to meet me at a restaurant and talk about a book? No one really took for that. You got any thoughts about that, Matt? Why didn't they want to meet me?
No.
In the email I said non-threatening white male. You hit record on both?
I haven't yet. That's not
Go ahead. There can be extemporaneous footage. Extemporaneous? That's not the right word, is it?
Extemporaneous means is outside of what you're gonna.
Is that right?
Outside what is temporaneous.
All right. Well, speaking of long words, we're reading China Mieville's Kraken. We're not reading it. We're discussing it.
He's reading it, but yeah.
I've read it. Do you want to be mentioned as the cameraman? Brandon Nash. He lives on 3. No, okay. He's our cameraman. He set the cameras up, so if it's bad quality, blame him. So, Kraken is
Yeah, let's get Kraken.
China Mieville's sort of self-proclaimed last throwing the kitchen sink at literature, where he is making these long, very full, drunk sentences that are powerful and beautiful, but also exhausting to get through. The book is about a curator at the Natural Museum of Science in London named Billy Harrow, who is thrust into the strange, magical world of London because a kraken, a giant squid, gets stolen from the Museum of Natural Science, and he is sort of connected to it in some way, and he's brought along in this world where ink is magic, where words are magic. It has a lot to do with philosophy. So Billy is kidnapped by a gang. The leader is a tattoo on a man's back. The man is unwilling to be a participant, so he's like dragged out. Billy escapes with the help of a guy named Dane, who takes him to the Church of the Squid, and they worship giant squids. They see them as gods, and apparently it doesn't matter who you are. Because this one church worships them as gods, they are gods and they have power. And their power can be used to bring about things, magical things. And the thing that people want to bring about here is the end of the world. In fact, there are multiple apocalypse. There are multiple apocalypses that are being conceived of at the same time. And there's sort of these magical detectives who are trying to stop the apocalypse from happening. There's a lot of really cool characters in the book. There's like one character was an Egyptian idol that was buried with a pharaoh, who then in the afterlife led a revolt against the pharaoh for all of the spiritual workers that had to work for the pharaoh. And then he goes on to other afterlives to organize their afterlives, and then eventually finds his way back to Earth, where he becomes the leader of a union for magical creatures, familiars, constructs, those kind of things. And when we see him in this book, he's actually leading a protest, a boycott, a walkout for these magical creatures to renegotiate contracts with the people who have created them or work with them. That's one cool character. I don't know, what do you think about that?
That sounds really interesting, John. Honestly, it reminds me of a book I read also one time, The Herald's Purple Crayon. I know you said that in the Kraken, ink is like magic. Well, in a very similar way, Harold's Purple Crayon is kind of like his gateway into a magical world. See, now Harold is a young boy who's bestowed a great power, kind of similar to this detective.
I've read it.
appearance.
I've read Harold's Purple Crown.
Yeah, but I mean, there might be one or two people who have not. Anyway, so the boy Harold, he just, like you said, ink is magic, and anything that he can think or believe, he can make into reality. That sort of thing.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
and a lot of those themes kind of seem like they're resonating also within China Mieville's Kraken. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay, now I get that now.
I'm just saying he could have been drawing on Harold's Purple Crayon.
He might be I guarantee he's read that.
Yeah,
He's probably
so,
read that.
That makes sense.
Either
Like,
consciously or unconsciously.
Yeah.
He was, yeah, okay. Another really interesting part of the story is that there's another gang leader who was killed but has been boiled down to his essence, cremated, and spread into magical ink, and literally exists as ink. And so he gets around by the ink being put on paper, and the paper animates itself and moves around like it can be a flying creature or whatever. It even turns into like a tiger at one point to attack people. And he wants to mix his essence with the Kraken's ink because he believes that will make him a god and that he can then recreate the universe in his image. A lot of the story is about the power of creation and who has that power. Do things exist because we say they exist, or do they exist because we just haven't discovered them yet? That's sort of one of the themes of the story.
yeah, it makes sense. And we're just going yet again back to Harold's Purple Crayon, kind of about how humans hold the power of creation, the things that you believe, and then drawing them into reality. And the question is kind of whether or not reality is an object of your imagination, right? Or if your imagination is something that can be superseded and pulled into our own world, right? And so just like this guy that you say he wants to merge himself with the Kraken's ink, I feel like yet again we're just coming back to the exact same character, Harold, the Purple Crayon.
So far, this just seems almost like a ripoff.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. I'm
Of
not
Harold's
saying
Purple
that
Crayon.
the subconscious mind is a very powerful thing. Is what I'm saying. He
All
might
right.
not have intentionally tried to rip off.
Okay, but he did it unintentionally.
Yeah,
or
obviously.
intentionally.
I'm just saying it's fine to be inspired by something, but to take one thing and essentially, just make sort of like a gritty reboot. This is a very Hollywood thing, and kind of I think a little beneath China Mieville.
So, one of the characters, spoiler alert, his goal is to, he believes in Christianity. He's a devout follower of Christianity, but he feels as though his religion has lost the war of ideas to evolution and to other sciences. So he wants the Kraken ink, the Kraken's power, to erase and rewrite history. And then there comes that idea of bringing things into existence. He thinks that if you never have the discoveries of Darwin, then evolution doesn't exist. And that things only come to existence because we find them and will them into existence. And so if he can erase that from history, then all of a sudden Christianity will be the victor of the war of ideas again. It's one of the cooler characters in the book, I think.
That makes sense. I can get behind that. It sort of goes back to that classic question of, the tree falls in the forest, no one's there to hear it type thing. I think in this particular instance, you might say that the character is a little misguided. The question is not whether or not, Christianity is one, or the ideas of evolution is one, does it matter, right? And I guess that's one of the themes of the Kraken in general, because does it matter whether or not humans discovering evolution or humans believing in the Christian God or not, does that affect their power? Because like you said earlier, right,
Yeah.
it's not that...
Belief gives things
it's not
power
exactly
according to
that
this book.
the Krakens have any sort of power, but the fact that people believe they give them power, right?
Yes, that's
So
what gives
it's
them
that
power. Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting, I guess. Like I said, I haven't read the book, but it sounds like you think that's interesting. So.
I want to read you a few quotes from the book to see what you think, not just about the ideas that are presented in the sentences, but also the sentences themselves, because China Mieville is known, especially for the books that come before Kraken, for being having very full sentences that are drunk with imagery and other things. And he is playing a lot with language and sentence structure in this book, specifically because it's about ink and because it's about ideas and that kind of thing. So here's about the union of familiars that are going on strike. There were pickets of insects, pickets of birds, pickets of slyly animate dirt. There were circles of striking cats and dogs, surreptitious doll pickets like grubby, motionless picnics, and flesh puppets, pickets of what looked like, in some cases, had once been humans.
Cool.
You just like that? Yeah, it's just cool. Okay. Not all the familiars were embodied, but even those magicked assistants who eschewed all physicality were on strike. So, a picket line in unearth, a clot of angry vectors, a verdigris of stain on the air, an excitable parameter. Mostly in the middling complex space-time where people live, these pickets looked like nothing at all. Sometimes they felt like warmth, or a gauzy clot of caterpillar threads hanging from a tree, or a sense of guilt. What do you think about that? Concepts picketing. Not just physical things, but
It's
concepts.
just interesting because the concept of picketing, I guess that's what it's getting at there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you know me. I don't really like that kind of stuff, but I can tell that you enjoy it. So I guess there's some value to that. I know you and I were talking about general like utility of things and whether or not something can be good if it's not useful. I think we've answered that question. No. No. Something can be utterly not useful and apparently still be good. So
That's right.
we've answered it.
Well, we did our best.
Yep.
What else can I say?
Yeah, we did our best. That's
We-
for sure.
We did our best.
One of us did our best.
This has been Jonathan Campbell. Oh no, it's called John Gets Lit. That's the name of the John Gets Lit.
I'm leaving.
Because literature can be abbreviated to lit.
Don't point the camera at me.
But it's like John understands it, like John gets lit, and the kids are gonna love that. John Gets Lit. So anyway, this has been John Gets Lit with Jonathan Campbell and my guest today, Matt Sen. Thank you.
I think it's a good thumbnail.
Huh?
This is a good thumbnail. You
Sure.
just
It could be a good thumbnail. It could also
shoving
be
something
like
in
just
your
a
mouth.
part of the video where I.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think I like calamari. So here we go. It tastes like marinara sauce. It tastes fried. But mentally, I keep saying in my head, there's an octopus in your mouth right now.
Yeah.
Stop chewing
Well,
and spit.
squid, but yeah.
Stop chewing and spit this out. There's a sea creature in your mouth. It tastes fine.
You know, they say calamari is just the chicken of the sea.
Chicken of the sea?
Yeah.
Like tuna?
No, that's calamari. It's the chicken of the sea. It's like the tuna of the sea, which is the chicken of the sea.
I see what you're saying.
So,
Yeah.
transitively, it's the chicken of the
It's
sea.
all 7 degrees of tuna in some way.